Howdy, my name is Riley Lowder, and I'm doing my project on Little Miss Sunshine. The description. The character I am diagnosing is Frank Ginzenberg. He is the gay brother to Cheryl Hoover, which is the mother of Olive, and Olive is a little girl who aspires to be the beauty queen throughout the whole movie. Frank was a former employed scholar of Proust, which was a 20th century French author. However, his employment ended when he fell in love with his graduate student that ended up leaving him for the number 2 Proust scholar. Frank was led to be heartbroken and out of the job. This turn of events in Frank's life led to horrible counteractions. The background. The film is based on Frank's dysfunctional family. Everyone has a little something off about them, but that's what makes the movie so unique. Olive, Frank's niece, finds out that she qualifies to be in the Little Miss Sunshine beauty pageant, which is 800 miles away from where they live. The dysfunctional family, including Olive's coach for the pageant, travel in their yellow Volkswagen all across 800 miles. Diagnosis. Frank Ginzenberg would be diagnosed with major depressive disorder. Throughout the movie, Frank shows many symptoms that would connect him to being extremely depressed and previously wanting to end his life. I believe that major depressive disorder is diagnosed in all cultures. It seems that Frank was a normal guy before the horrible events occurred in his life. With tragic events, anyone can become depressed, or they may even have a gene that triggers their depression. Not all depression is as severe as Frank's, but I believe that it happens in all cultures and to everybody at specific times, of course. Stigmas that are associated with major depressive disorder today could be based on what society wants for people. Society has been negatively impacting others ever since the internet truly became popular. Since social media and other media influencers, more images on what people should look like and act like make individuals feel depressed because they're not what society is uplifting them to be. These depressed states can lead to major depressive disorder. And during the movie, Frank loses the man he loves to the number 2 Proust scholar, and it shows that Frank feels that he might not be good enough or valuable enough to be loved. And that's another big thing that society has on people, is that people might not be truly loved as much as they want to be or feel like they should be. And I think that's where Frank's diagnosis first comes involved, is when he loses the love that he had before. Evidence. In order to be diagnosed with major depressive disorder, 5 or more symptoms must occur for a minimum of 2 weeks. One thing that would definitely diagnose Frank would be in the beginning of the movie. Frank officially moves in with his sister after losing his job and losing someone he was in love with. These events made him depressed, and he tried to commit suicide and failed. He was not allowed to be alone again because he was having recurrent thoughts and more suicide attempts. He also had bandages wrapped around his wrists due to him harming himself before. Frank also had loss of appetite because the whole family feasted on KFC. He barely had anything to eat during that scene. He lost all interest in everything he was doing in the beginning of the movie. He did not even want to live with his sister or be around family because of his depression. He did not want to be around anybody or even talk to anybody. And throughout the movie, you can see, mainly in the beginning, you can see that he did not want to be talked to and tried to talk as little as he possibly could. He felt sluggish and did not seem to want to leave the hospital when he was first admitted for a suicide attempt. In one of the first scenes, you see him sitting in a chair and staring off into the distance. And as someone tells him he can leave now, he doesn't look happy, doesn't look any kind of happiness. So it shows that he was sluggish and still had no attempt of wanting to live, actually. Lastly, Frank had just had an extremely depressive mood. He always seemed to be sad. Of course, towards the end of the movie, that seemed to change, but in the beginning, when he was still in the hospital and back with his sister, he was always just purely sad. Evidence continued. The symptom throughout the movie that I did not notice that Frank had was sleep disturbances. Maybe they did not input that into the movie because it wasn't necessary, but I am sure that he would have had all the symptoms of major depressive disorder. Frank showed all symptoms except for sleeping issues. And in the picture to the right, you can see that Frank is in all white and he is the second from the left. And you can, if you look very closely, you can see the bandages around his wrists and his dull facial expression. Treatment. Throughout the movie, Frank showed more connection to his family and smiled with his niece and nephew. The importance of love for his family grew more and more during the movie. So, Frank's treatment would be cognitive therapy, which is focusing on identifying and correcting distorted thinking about the self, others, or the world. Frank had a lot of events that happened to him that hurt his self-esteem and that hurt his thought process, which in turn wanted him to kill himself. So, with cognitive therapy, Frank would be restructuring, which is replacing irrational thoughts with realistic ones. Instead of constantly thinking about the bad times and the bad things that happened to him, he can think of positive times, such as his niece and nephew and those good times he has. And basically taking these horrible thoughts he's having, exactly, and making them more realistic into more life-altering positivity instead of life-altering negativity. I believe that his family truly helps with Frank's disorder. It keeps his mind away from the negative events and puts positive ones in their place. So throughout the movie, you can see that he grows bonds with his niece and nephew, something that he didn't want before, and that his family is a connection to his happiness, which in turn can reverse or decrease his depressive state. Also, because of his failed suicide attempt, he put himself in danger, so I believe Frank should be on medication as well. Frank should be on antidepressants. I think antidepressants can really help his process into taking away his depressive state. Treatment continued. Some ethical concerns for cognitive therapy would be that some issues or some tragic events are so stuck into an individual's brain that lots of therapy would need to be taken into action in order to fix the issue at hand. This is why I think Frank should also be on antidepressants in order to not think so harshly on those horrible events. Because therapy can only do so much, I think that, especially for Frank's situations, such as losing his job, losing someone he loves, and attempting suicide, I think that antidepressants would truly help his state and help him become better. With antidepressants, you must also be careful prescribing them because they can be misused. In the movie, Frank must stay with his sister in order to be watched over the whole time, just in case there would be an incident. People who are like Frank or worse should be watched over when taking these type of drugs, because when he attempted suicide, he was alone, so he had nobody watching over him, and in order to avoid that again, he would need to be watched until he got better. Some barriers that might stop Frank from getting help he needs is because he doesn't seem to want it, especially in the beginning. Like I said, in the hospital scene, when he was still in the hospital, he did not look happy about leaving. He did not look like he wanted to get better. He looked like he was stuck and he wanted to be that way. So you cannot help someone who doesn't want to be helped. In the beginning, again, like I said, he had no interest at the time. So how would talking to someone help as much if he truly doesn't want to be helped? So that's why I believe cognitive therapy plus antidepressants would really help Frank. Broader perspectives. I believe that Steve Carell's portrayal on Frank's major depression disorder is extremely accurate. This is why I love the movie so much, because he is in such a dark place and it shows how greatly events can affect individuals in real life. If someone told me that Frank was real and that that's actually him, I would completely believe it. He shows all signs of depressive disorder, and you can see in his facial expressions and in his actions, and around the other people who seem to be happier, you can tell just how horrible these events have affected him. Some movies, unfortunately, don't do as great a job as Steve Carell did for Frank's character. Some blow disorders way out of proportion and get backlash from the audience. Watching films like Little Miss Sunshine gives audiences a great representation of what a depressive disorder looks like. Films do highly influence these and what we think about characters with specific disorders. We just have to remember what is true about them and what parts are pure Hollywood. Basically, meaning which parts did Hollywood emphasize and blow out of proportion again. This can really affect people's viewpoints and understandings of disorders, but I believe that Steve Carell did a very good job in knowing that he was in such a horrible place but can get better is, again, another reason why I love the movie so much. He shows such great depression and such sadness, but with the people around him and help of loved ones and everything, it shows that he can get better. And again, that's why I love this movie, because everybody's felt sad at some points, and everybody has been down, maybe not as down as major depression disorder, but everything will get better in the end, and that's why I love this movie. And the end. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you.